I don't really understand this idea that parents should decide what's being taught. I'm not a professional educator. I don't have a degree in social studies or science. We send our children to school because we want them to be taught by people who have an expertise in the subject area.
Well, that was founder of the 1619 Project, Nikole Hannah-Jones, on Meet the Press Sunday. Now, the left continues to push this narrative that parents shouldn't have any control over what their kids are taught in school. To discuss more, let's welcome back our panel, Democratic strategist and former Obama advance man Robin Byro and Morgan Zengers. She is the founder of Young Americans Against Socialism, and Hannah Cox. She's a conservative activist and content manager at the Foundation for Economic Education. So, Hannah, start with you first on this. I'm a parent. I have 2.7 kids, one due in March, and I kind of want to make sure that my kids are learning reading, writing, and arithmetic. Should I have a say in that?
Yes. You know what? I'm not a parent, but this actually gets under my skin. First and foremost, she has the audacity to say that parents shouldn't get to decide what their kids are being taught. That is the most backwards thing I've ever heard. For decades, we've been begging parents to get more involved at their local school boards, to have more of a say in what's going on in their public school system. Now that they're doing that, we see a full-out persecution of those parents from many people in our government, from the left, and even from the FBI. I think this is outrageous. I also think it's a total word salad. This lady has the audacity to come on and say she's not an educator while pushing for tenure, while working for Harvard, and while actually writing curriculum that she's trying to force upon every American kid. Lastly, for her to say that the experts should be deciding what kids are taught and then to be doing these activities behind the scenes is total hypocrisy. The actual educators, the teachers in our school have not had a say in what's taught in this country in decades because the federal government took over the education system decades ago, and both Republicans and Democrats are complicit in that. So I really this whole segment from her just totally infuriates me, if you can't tell.
Yeah, and Morgan, this was not a problem for so long because we trusted our educational institutions. We said, hey, I believe that my kid's going to go there and learn stuff. But now you have this Common Core stuff where 3 + 3 can equal 7. Folks, if I send my kid to go work for NASA after learning 3 + 3 equals 7, they miss the planet they're aiming for. So, Morgan, can we break this down and try to make the left understand that, guys, if you do the right thing, we won't be so concerned about you teaching social justice instead of arithmetic?
Yeah, you really hit the nail on the head right there, because it's not just with the last couple years. This has been a growing problem, whether it was Common Core or the COVID or the sexualization or the history classes that are being distorted. This is getting pretty frustrating for a lot of parents. And I can personally attest to this. I graduated high school in 2015, so I went through a lot of the weird education reform that the left pushed in New York State. And I can even tell you, I swear, they made us take a test in the beginning of the class period and then at the end of the class period after the year went by. And guess what? When classes like calculus were tested in the beginning and the end, the students' scores improved, but they were doing it to test if a teacher was a good teacher or not. So none of the bureaucracy of education really makes sense these days, and I think a lot of parents are really waking up to it. And I will say it's kind of shocking that she thinks that we want to send our kids to be educated by experts when she made her own fake history class, and I guess she's an expert in that now, but anybody can really do that. So it's pretty frustrating, and I will say with my generation, I'm Gen Z, I'm really excited, and a lot of my friends are really excited to grow up and to not have our children go to government school one day. People are starting to rethink what it means to educate your children and to take part in community, and a lot of that means not sending your children to government school.
Yeah, well, Robin, I want to bring you in here now that Morgan has just aged us. She graduated in 2015. I was graduated high school in 2002. So how does that make us old folks feel? Look, we know that this was an issue in Virginia, okay? It was the governor's race, and it was a bunch of angry parents just like me that went out there and said, just teach my kids what they need to learn in school. Stop pushing all this other stuff. What do you think?
First, Carl, I've got to congratulate you for the baby on the way. That's awesome. March would be a great time to have that kid. I've got 2 children myself, and in public schools, and I have a say. I do go to school board meetings. Right now, they're still on Zoom, as many are across the country, but I still participate in those. I want to tell those parents at home, You know, that is an elected position. Run for school board. I think that some of these need to be some fresh blood in them. I don't agree with a lot of what's happening right now on the public school boards. You have the opportunity to reform that, though. Do show up to those meetings and make your voices heard. A lot of this I take issue with because, look, critical race theory has been a thing since about 1976, but we didn't start hearing about it until 2019 with this 1619 project. And of course, we saw 5 senior educators
but also
at
Zoom.
Princeton.
The Zoom under COVID really exposed it to parents.
Exactly. You're exactly right. These things have got to, parents just get involved like we do. I always want to see what my children are studying. I review their homework because I want to know exactly what they're being taught. I don't want to leave that solely up to educators. So I do have a lot of issues with what Nikole Hannah-Jones said.
Yeah. So, Hannah, I want to get your thoughts on this. The California Department of Education official, she's resigning after being called out for not even living in the same state. OK, this is the thing. Oh, they want to teach their big government policies in California. However, they want to go live in conservative bastions like Texas. This is against their policy. So she's resigning, and she should be fired outright over it. What do you think about this?
I think it is high-key hilarious. They can't even get people who are working in these school systems to stay in these states. It's also funny because California actually has banned federal employees or their state employees from even traveling to Texas because they think it's such a bastion of inequality, and yet they are hiring people to run their equality programs in the California school systems who live in Texas. It's too good. It's too good of a story. It's very, very funny. And honestly, I think this entire thing points to the reality, which is that a lot of these equality type divisions that are cropping up across our education system are really just slush funds for people to hire their friends and pay them really large salaries. And look, I'm all about teaching equality. I actually think that we should be teaching American kids the true history of what our government has done, and there are many atrocities in our past. I'm not against some of these notions, but the way that they're going about it, the people that are in charge of carrying this out are just really very hypocritical, and I think that we need a lot more scrutiny on where the money's going in our school system at large.
Yeah, Morgan, she brings up an interesting point there, though, is that these educational systems and these institutions can turn into slush funds. I mean, look, Elizabeth Warren was making like $450,000 from a college to teach one class. You have Hillary Clinton doing the same thing. Look, I didn't go to college. I have no higher degree from anything other than high school. And I think that I'm sitting next to a lot of people who did go to college who are like, oh, I didn't learn anything from the real world in college. I learned everything on the job. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, what I do right now really has nothing to do with any of the things that I learned in college. And I studied communications, law, economics, and government when I was in school. And I think we read 2 of the Federalist Papers. So that's just one of the many problems I had in college. I also had a lot of my colleagues that they argued for a segregated cafe on campus. And the line goes on of how many crazy campus stories I could tell you. But I think at the end of the day, people are starting to wake up. And what people are going to start to realize is this problem of education in America starts at a very young age, where we are failing our kids in a middle school, high school level, and then they go off to college and get indoctrinated. So a lot of the people that start to get worried, they go, oh, we've got to fix our colleges. Yes, we do. We definitely have to fix them. But once they start opening their eyes, they're going to start to realize that the problem starts very, very young. So I'm excited for this new wave of education reform in America that we're going to see.
Teach your kids to question everything. That is my motto. I think it's going to hopefully follow on with them through college. Morgan, Robin, Hannah, appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
All right. Now, lawsuits are piling up against the Defense Department's vaccine mandate. We're going to tell you which states are sticking up for the troops and their freedoms next.